Good video on Bojo
This
having
video
a
was
bad
brought to you by
week. Came out 30 minutes before he
Curiosity
resigned.
Stream. Conservative MPs have stood by the Prime Minister through scandal after scandal after scandal. The latest one, surrounding Chris Pincher, seems to be the final straw. That's because on Tuesday evening, a slew of resignations saw Johnson losing his Chancellor and Health Secretary within just a matter of moments. So let's take a look at what's happened, how the scandal unfolded, who's resigned, and what happens next. Let's start with the proximate cause of all of this chaos, the Chris Pincher scandal. And this scandal goes all the way back to 2017, when then Deputy Chief Whip Chris Pincher became caught up in the Pestminster scandal, with fellow Tory politician Alex Storey even going as far as branding him a pound shop Harvey Weinstein. When the news broke about this, Pincher lost his job and referred himself to the police and the party's complaints procedure. But Pincher wasn't gone long, because in 2019, the new Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, decided to appoint him as Minister for Europe and the Americas. And since then, Pincher has slowly but
Damn, bro, that would never happen in America. Oh, wait, except for all the times it has happened and will continue to happen.
surely been climbing back to his old post. But things really started going downhill for Pincher Thursday last week, when Pincher allegedly got drunk and groped two men. Pincher even admitted that he drank far too much and, quote, embarrassed myself and others, before he promptly resigned as Deputy Chief Whip. Now, originally, the government said that they
Properly named, bruv.
wouldn't be kicking Pincher out of the party because of this scandal, which certainly raised some eyebrows, not just because, well, having an alleged sex pest on your roster isn't exactly a good look, and because similar MPs have been kicked out for similar things. So, perhaps unsurprisingly, after just 24 hours of pressure, the government U-turned and removed the whip from Pincher. Now, given Pincher's history, people began to ask what Johnson was thinking when he reappointed him in 2019. Initially, Number 10 said that Johnson just wasn't aware of any specific allegations against Pincher.
I don't believe he was aware. That's what I've been told today. You were asking more about more general rumours, and I've no idea what conversations have been had. I am aware that the Prime Minister was not aware of specific claims.
I spoke with Number 10 both yesterday and today, and I asked them firmly and clearly for an answer on this, and I've been given categorical assurance that the Prime Minister was not aware of any serious specific allegation.
I don't think the Prime Minister is aware of any substantiated complaints to the extent that they would.
Isn't it wonderful to see? Isn't it wonderful to see that, like, your media and our media is nearly identical in, like, lapping up bullshit? Absolute fucking bullshit. It's great.
Would trigger a formal mechanism.
The problem is that this argument just isn't all that plausible, given that the allegations about Pincher are not only public knowledge, but also were widely publicised just a few years ago. And to make matters worse, on Saturday, Dominic Cummings even claimed that Johnson himself used to refer to him as Pincher by name, Pincher by nature, suggesting that Johnson was all too aware of the allegations. Then, on Sunday, 6 new claims of inappropriate behaviour by Pincher emerged.
Pincher by name,
even
Pincher by
less
nature.
plausible that Johnson. In response to this revelation, Michael Ellis defended the Prime Minister by basically arguing that he forgot he was told about Mr. Pincher.
Last week, when fresh allegations arose, the Prime Minister did not immediately recall the conversation in late 2019 about this incident. As soon as he was reminded, the
He forgore, dude. You don't understand. It happens. It happens regularly. In my line of work, okay? In my line of work, I'm too busy. Sometimes I forget.
Number 10.
Now, this mess of communication over the last few days has caused some serious friction, especially among government ministers. And that's because the government's bound by collective cabinet responsibility, meaning that ministers are expected to defend the Prime Minister as long as they have a job within their government. It seems, though, that arguing that Johnson forgot he knowingly appointed an alleged sex pest into government was a bridge too far for many members of his cabinet. The first to fall was...
I can't help but feel like this, unironically, is like such a funny reason Like, there's nothing funny about like defending sex pests or sexual assaulters or anything, obviously. But like thinking about it from the perspective of like an American, it is such a like, it is completely outside of the scope of reason that like someone would actually see any sort of accountability for something like this, considering that like this is quite literally just how Republicans operate in our country all the time.
Competence. These two might have been the beginning, but they started a whole wave of resignations, from more senior politicians to those lower in the hierarchy, with resignations continuing far into the following day. And it was these resignations that set the stage for what ended up being an incredibly feisty Prime Minister's questions yesterday, a session which was immediately followed by the resignation speech of Health Secretary Sajid Javid. Now, Starmer's focus in PMQs was not so much on the resignation themselves, but the thing that caused them, the Chris Pincher scandal.
Prosecuting rapists, I heard that from victims all the time. Victims said they froze because it's not about sex, it's about power. And the power the disgraced government minister had was handed to him by that Prime Minister. And he's only in power because he's been propped up for months by a corrupted party defending the indefensible.
Mr. Speaker, the difference between this government and that opposition is we have a plan and they do not.
With Javid gone and pressure increasing, what could happen next? Well, Johnson's now overseen 36 resignations in 24 hours, which is the highest number of any Prime Minister
This is a speed
since
run, too.
1932. And Johnson is now immense, and the drip feed of resignations over the last couple of days certainly hasn't helped him. One thing that absolutely didn't help him, though, was when his good pal Michael Gove went to him yesterday afternoon to tell him that the gig was up and that he really ought to resign. But will he heed Gove's advice? What happens now? Well, there was a huge amount of speculation yesterday that the 1922 committee, the committee which represents Conservative backbenchers, was going to change their own rules to give themselves the opportunity to kick out Boris.
Why are you defending a conservative? I assume it's very different in the UK or US. What, you think I'm defending Boris Johnson? I'm being sarcastic. Fuck that guy. I hate him.
And that's because current rules state that the Prime Minister has a year of immunity after a vote of no confidence, with Johnson facing and winning a vote of no confidence only a few weeks ago. But the rules that stipulate this immunity are flexible, and the executive of the 1922 committee have the power to amend the rules, but only do so if it's the will of the party. And that's doubly interesting, because there are elections to choose a new executive of the 1922 committee coming next Monday. And depending on who wins, there's a high likelihood that a rule change could take place under this new executive. It's unclear at the moment what new rules the executive might choose to introduce, although it's expected that a new, higher threshold will be announced, which will need to be surpassed in order for Johnson to face a second no-confidence vote, even within this immunity period. It's likely that he'd be able to continue on as Prime Minister, albeit a very bruised one. However, if through one of the aforementioned routes Johnson is forced out of office, a leadership election would occur within the Conservative Party, and fellow Tory MPs vote on their favourites, with the ones with the least support being progressively eliminated until just 2 remain. These 2 will then be presented to the wider Conservative membership, who will vote on who they'd like as their leader, with the winning person becoming the new Conservative leader and therefore the new Prime Minister. Anyway, the point here is that there's a lot of pressure on Johnson at the moment, and while there are many different routes for him to be ousted, there aren't that many options if he wants to stay on as Prime Minister, and therefore it looks very likely that he won't be residing in number 10 for much longer. But this is British politics we're talking about, so I suppose anything is possible. So if Johnson's very...
Yeah, I mean, he's right. Anything is possible, which is why the impossible happened. And Boris Johnson, unfortunately, had to resign